Hello, thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Helen Devine-Costa and I am Vice Principal for Post 16 in the school. And I'm joined by some lovely colleagues this evening. So I'm just going to ask Miss Julia Zhu and Helena Murchie to turn on their cameras.
Hello.
So Helena, do you just want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm the Helena Murchie, Vice Principal and MYP Coordinator. So thanks very much for joining us tonight. It's really great to have you here and to learn a little bit more about the proposal for the Chinese Mastery course.
And Julia? Oh, you're just on mute, yeah.
Yeah, I'm Julia Zhu, Head of Chinese, and we welcome all the parents joining us for this Mastery Chinese course.
Now I'm muted, just a couple of housekeeping bits. We're going to run through some information for you just to try and outline the proposal to you. There is option to do some Q&A. If you look down towards the very bottom of your screen, there is a little Q&A box. So you can type in your questions during the webinar. If we have chance, we will reply to some of those questions during the webinar. If we don't manage to get around to all of them, we will put a document together tomorrow that does like a frequently asked questions, and we'll compile all of that and a set of answers and share that back out with everybody so that everybody can read through all of the information. So without further ado, I'm just going to share my screen. And Julia and Helena are just going to disappear into the background because they're just going to keep an eye on any questions that you might have as we go through the presentation. So I'm just going to start us off. These are the key things that we hope to address in this webinar. First of all, I want to just explain to you what our existing language provision looks like, and then go through what the proposal is that we're putting forward. Julia's going to talk a little bit about why we want to increase the provision for Chinese in the school for some of our students, how we think it might benefit some of our students, a little bit about the research and what our Hong Kong context is in all of this. And then we'll talk about what other language learning is available and, you know, what we hope the learning outcomes are going to be for all of this. From the outset, I want to make it, you know, super clear that this is optional for your children. So there is no compulsion to take up the mastery program that we're proposing. It's totally optional, but we want to give everybody a choice so that those people that do want to perhaps focus a little bit more on their Chinese learning have the opportunity to do so. Students who want to maintain the current system and have Chinese and their European language are still more than welcome to do that as well. So to start with, what's our current language provision? Because some of you might not be totally sure how it works. So currently, some of our students study Chinese language and literature. And alongside that, they do a European language of acquisition. So that might be the French or the Spanish. And then some of our other students are doing Chinese as a language acquisition course. And then they're doing a European language acquisition course as well. And for all of our students currently, no matter which of those you're doing, they've got 3 periods of Chinese in a 7-day cycle and 3 periods of European language in that same 7-day cycle. Now, the benefits of the current system are it means that students can maintain their Chinese and their European language studies. They've got good preparation for language acquisition pathways at GCSE and IB in both Chinese and European languages. And it prepares them if they want to do language degrees at university level, then they have that option to go in and do those sorts of courses at university. Now, we are not a bilingual school. We are an international school, and we cannot offer a full bilingual education. That's not what ESF provides. It's not what West Island provides. So what we're looking to do is bridge the gap a little bit and offer some of our students the opportunity to choose to do a little bit more Chinese so that it gives them a much better grounding and that they can become more proficient in their Chinese studies. But as an international school, we also are offering all the other options that are out there and all the extracurricular materials, and that's really, really important to us. We don't have the resources, the staffing, the availability to be a fully bilingual school. So please bear that in mind as we're going through what the proposal is. So some of our students and many of our students will want to carry on with their dual language program where they study Chinese and a European language, and that's absolutely fine. What it means is they would be doing Chinese as a language acquisition course plus their European language course as well. And really, it stays the same for them. 3 periods of Chinese a cycle and 3 periods of European language a cycle with the same benefits that students currently have in the system that we've had here for a few years. The proposal is that we have, alongside that, running a Chinese mastery program that students can opt into if it is the right choice for them. And this is where we need you to think really carefully about if it is the right choice for you and your children. So students have the option to study Chinese language and literature. So those that are currently in the Chinese language and literature pathway, they can go on and they will do 6 periods a cycle of Chinese language and literature, starting from year 8 and then moving forwards. And the hope with that is that that will give those students who really have a genuine first language ability a much greater proficiency in that first language as they move up through the school. We also have students who are currently phase 3, phase 4 language acquisition. And we want to give those students the opportunity to opt in and do a mastery program as well, and where they get 6 periods a cycle. Again, in line with what their primary school exposure would have been. We think this will allow students to develop a more in-depth knowledge and understanding of Chinese and Chinese culture. We think it's a better preparation for first language pathway for those on the Chinese language and literature route, and for the second language pathway as well at GCSE and at IB. And also we think that it's a good preparation for university and the workplace in Hong Kong, and Julia will talk a little bit more about that later on. So both of these programs will run concurrently, and they're open to everybody. So you can opt in or you can choose to stay on the dual language program. No one has to move across to mastery just because you're at a certain level. The choice is absolutely yours to take. Students, we had some questions about this because I think the letter was a little bit misleading at the beginning, so I apologise if that's caused any confusion. But students can continue with their European language lessons, and those lessons are offered all the way through school. So MYP, into GCSE and GP, we have both French and Spanish offered at all the levels. There is not going to be a decrease in the learning hours in those subjects, so we are increasing the Chinese option, which means you might choose not to do a European language, therefore, if you're doing the mastery program. But for those students who are carrying on with the current system, there won't be any decrease in their European language learning at all. And if some students want to do the Chinese mastery program, which means they won't have any formal European language lessons, then the Modern Foreign Languages Department already have online resources. They already run with students some external accreditation courses too. And they were more than happy to support and continue to support students learning their languages as part of that external accreditation process, but it won't be through taught lessons in the classroom, and it won't be through the kind of GCSE IB language route. So at this point, I'm going to just ask Julia to pop her camera on. There we go. Julia, are you there? Yes. So I'm just going to disappear. Sorry, Julia's just going to take over from here.
Okay. I'm not talking about the rationale for increasing provision for Chinese at Western school. The key purpose for us to provide a mastery course, we just want to students can take Chinese can improve their Chinese literacy to a higher level. This also we also want to maintain the continuity and progression from their primary schools. As in ESF and primary school, students do daily Chinese. And it is also important for students to strengthen their connection to their heritage and culture. We also hope students will have a better career advantage in this region because our schools are located in Hong Kong. So more and more students are choose university in Hong Kong and work in Hong Kong in the future. And mastery course can also support students' cognitive development, including critical thinking and problem-solving skills. This has been supported by research. And so far, our students are doing first language GCSE and second language GCSE. They are feeling these examinations are very challenging at the moment. So through mastery course, we hope students can do better and to achieve a better grade in these two challenging examinations at the GCSE level. So this is our rationale wants to provide for students. Next slide. Yeah, I'm not talking about why now. This is because Hong Kong, Western schools in Hong Kong, SAR, a Chinese-speaking region. So recently, more and more, an increasing number of our students, their mother tongue is Chinese, either Putonghua or Cantonese. And more students choose an university destination in Hong Kong. We have an increasing number of students, they do university in Hong Kong. And Also, data shows more students are opting to find work in this region. So Chinese maybe it's an important tool for them at workplace. And international schools will bring us more in line with provision in other international schools. So other international schools, some schools offer bilingual program, and some other schools, they are Chinese provision is bigger. So we want to in line with these schools. And can you do this? Is our reasons for why we improve Chinese provision. And now I talk about what does the research tell us about the mother tongue. So there are plenty of research supports the idea that a sound foundation in the mother tongue is crucial for the cognitive development of ethnically Chinese students studying in English. So I have already collected all these research quotes from different papers. For example, UNESCO 2017 and said education in the mother tongue is a key factor for inclusion and quality learning, and it also improves learning outcomes and academic performance. Here, 2009, the World Bank, I put some quotes here. Students learn better when they are taught in their mother tongue in the early years of schooling. This leads to better educational outcomes, including higher literacy rates and improved cognitive development. And I have put all these 3 researchers, Jim Combs, his educator, write a lot of paper about mother tongue and education. And David Crystal also said, mother tongue is the foundation on which all future learning is built. If the foundation is not strong, the whole structure will be weak. So I want to say is all these are supported by the research. And Helen, can you do the next one? I'm now talk about the challenges of growing up in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is have a complex language environment. Hong Kong is a bilingual environment. And for example, in Hong Kong, even we are using 3 languages, English, Cantonese, and Mandarin in speaking. In writing, we are using simplified Chinese and traditional Chinese. A multilingual environment presents opportunities, but also can bring challenges for our students to learn a language or and also develop skills in other areas. So this create challenging one is when students study in an EMI school. EMI means English as medium of instruction. Their literacy in Chinese can weaken, especially when they're at an early stage. So their mother tongue will be distracted by English, their media of instruction. Challenging 2, when provision for Chinese is low in school, this makes it even harder for students to develop their Chinese literacy skills. So these are 2 challenges. So we hope providing mastery course, increasing time for students, we can make challenging to opportunities. So hopefully, yeah. So and now I'm talk about how to change a challenge into an opportunity. In Hong Kong, we all know EDB promotes biliterate and trilingual. Biliterate means in English and Chinese. Trilingual means in English, Cantonese, and Putonghua. So if we have more time in learning Chinese, students can develop better in this like biliterate and trilingual and better skills in biliterate and trilingual. So opportunity and benefit is increasing Chinese aim to empower students by enhancing their cognitive skills such as problem solving, abstract reasoning. At the same time, it provides them with career advantages and prepare them to build connection locally and globally. Next slide. So, what do we plan to do? The Chinese mastery course is only currently at the moment we only provide for the students taking the Learn-Lit course and the students taking language acquisition phase 3 and 4. For these two group of students, Chinese is their mother tongue, and some students can speak. For some students, 4 skills are very strong, but for some students, speaking, listening stronger than reading and writing. Their skills are varied based on their exposure to Chinese and their previous experience in Chinese language. Our current provision is 7 year 8, 3 hours per cycle, per 7-day cycle, 2 hours per week. The planned provision from 2025 to 2026, year 7, year 8, we got 6 hours per 7-day cycle and 4 hours per week. And our learning outcomes at the end of GCSE, and we hope all students make significant progress in their mother tongue, in Chinese. And we hope all students are capable communicators in Chinese language. Most students are proficient communicators in Chinese language. And for some students, they can develop the ability to understand the cultural and historical context of literary work and have the capacity to progress to the bilingual IBDP qualification. So this is our learning outcome for our students, but it's differentiated.
Thank you, Julia. Okay, so you've got a little bit of context and you've got an idea of what it is that we are proposing. This is taken from our current admissions policy, and I've just dropped a few little coloured lozenges on the top. So I apologise if it's a little bit confusing with all the arrows. I didn't have time to do a nice design version. But some of the questions pre-webinar were talking about, what's the impact on IGCSE, IB learning up the school. So I just wanted to talk you through how we see this working. So if we start on the far left with the Mastery Language and Literature course, those are students who are, MYP first language. And if they do that Mastery Language and Literature course, they would follow through to IGCSE first language exam. Now, what we're hoping is that will give them a much more greater proficiency, a much greater grounding. We'll have more students that are capable of getting those top AA star grades in that first language exam, which means more students that are then able to progress onto the Chinese, what was called the A route here, so the language and literature course for Chinese. Our policy at ESF is that if you get an A or an A star in first language GCSE, then you will go on to do first language IB in Chinese. Or if you don't wish to do that, then you can choose an ab initio in one of the other languages on offer, which means at this school you can start ab initio French or ab initio Spanish, which is beginner level French or Spanish at the start of year 12. Now, that's for the language and literature mastery program. Some of your children, if you opt into it, some of your children in phase 4 and 3 might want to opt into the mastery program for them as well. It's most likely that they would go on and do second language exam at GCSE. And again, what we're hoping is, because that's such a hard exam, we're hoping that the greater proficiency and the greater time to develop the skills means that we'll have more students that are able to attain those higher grades and have that greater kind of understanding. And again, that means more students that are able to comfortably move to Chinese B higher level. So that's the language of acquisition, higher level pathway. Again, if a student gets an A or an A star in that GCSE second language exam, then Chinese B higher level is their automatic route through. Or if they don't get an A or an A, or if they do get an A or an A star and don't want to do Chinese B higher level, again, they can opt to do a Chinese ab initio. Okay. So there are routes through, and then for students who maybe perform at a lower level at GCSE, there might be options to move across to Chinese SL from the second language pathway or to Chinese HL from the first language pathway. But it very much depends on our students individually, where they are, and what grade they got at GCSE as well. So it's a little bit complicated as we move forward, but hopefully you can see the overall chain. Now, again, lots of students may decide, actually, thank you very much, but I don't want to take up this mastery option, and that's totally fine. And they will be on the dual language pathway. And just as we have now, we have dual language students who are phase 3 and 4, and we have dual language students who are phase 1 and 2. And so they move on and progress to different levels at GCSE potentially. So some of the dual language students will go into the second language route and they will follow that second language chain down. Some of them might go into foreign language, depending, on their ability level, and they will follow the foreign language GCSEs and they will follow the chain down to the different IB levels as well. So standard level, or perhaps again, picking up an ab initio, picking up a new language if they decide they don't want to take their Chinese learning any further once they enter post 16. And then, of course, on the right, we have the second language in their profile. So whether that's French or Spanish, they will do their GCSE in that European language. And again, they can carry that on into IB at either higher or standard level, depending on the appropriate level of challenge. Or if they no longer want to continue with that European language, they can switch to a different language. So if you're doing French, you could switch to ab initio Spanish or ab initio Chinese. In reality, we have very few students that opt for ab initio Chinese. So usually the choice is between French and Spanish at ab initio level. But you can see there are lots of options through and there are lots of routes through. What's really important is that students are working at a level that is appropriate challenge for them. So we assess students throughout, just like we do now. We advise students on where we think they should be and where they should be most successful. And this is where we need you to think really carefully as a family about what you want your language learning to look like moving forwards. Because we can't do everything, but what we're trying to do is give you some choice over the options that you do have, a little bit more choice than we've been able to give people so far, which is quite exciting. What we don't know is how many people will opt for it. So we can't speak to specifics about what a timetable might look like and things like that until we're able to get some responses back from you and see, just how many people do want to opt in and just how many people want to carry on with a dual language pathway system. A couple of things I just wanted to touch on because these were good questions that came from the students actually, and then I think some parents as well in the follow-up before the webinar. Currently, if a student has EAP, so English for Academic Purposes, if they have those lessons and or if they have strategy for school lessons, S4S lessons, those at the moment are offered instead of a second language. So at the moment in your son or daughter's timetable, if they're getting EAP or S4S, they will likely have just one language, and then the other lessons are where they do their EAP and their S4S. That's fine if they carry on with dual language, it's going to be the same system. If they opt for Chinese mastery, and that's the right thing for them to do, then we will need to run those EAP and S for S lessons in another slot on the timetable. So it does mean they're going to end up missing another subject somewhere along the line, or part of another subject along the line. Again, we're not quite sure what that looks like until we see who's opting and how the timetable slots together. But it's something to be mindful of. And then finally, this idea of appropriate challenge. It's really important in an IB education all the way through that students' language learning is at an appropriate challenge. And we will make sure that classes are organised so that the students all have an appropriate level of challenge, whether that is phase 1, whether that's phase 3, 4, whether that is language and literature classes. Students are going to be, organised and with teachers that are there to set them appropriate level of challenge. So don't worry about that. We can, again, sort that once we see what our numbers look like for the different options. So in terms of our next steps, we will compile some questions based on things that may have come in through the webinar this evening, and also some of the questions that people sent ahead of time. We'll kind of put all of that together in an FAQ document. I need you to discuss this with your child. We deliberately spoke to the children, the Chinese department and I, this week and last week, just in a couple of little short meetings, so that they were aware of what was being discussed. They had a chance to pose questions, and so that when you talk about this, they're coming from it with a bit of an informed opinion. And we will always say to you that students should follow their passions. And we all know from our experience in education that students are most successful when they follow their passions. So, you may have an opinion, but your child may have a different opinion, and it's about talking about that and really working through what is going to be best for them, what's going to be most appropriate for them, and things that they're actually going to be able to manage and thrive in the pathway that they choose to do. We don't want people choosing things because we think it's the right thing to do, and then students end up struggling whichever pathway they might choose. So please choose something that they're going to thrive on, they're going to be happy in, they're going to be passionate about. We will create a Google form to send out next week so that you can opt in and let us know what your initial thinking is about what you and your child would like to do. We'll package all of this up with the FAQs, we'll package it up with this video recording as well. And then once we get that data in, we can look at the numbers and we can start to plan what it might actually look like in real terms. As I say, at the moment, we're not sure because we just don't know how many people will be wanting to opt in and how many people will be wanting to continue with a dual language route. So we need that information, and then we can start making some informed decisions from there on in. So that's it for our presentation. I will just invite everybody just to come on and say bye. I think it seems like we've answered most questions. Mike, is there anything you want to pick up on? I know you were busy beavering away in the background.
Yeah, a couple of things, really, and thank you for the presentation, Julia and Helen. It was very informative and delivered very well which is what is a very, very complex situation. With languages here, you've got different phases, different abilities of students. You've also got essentially two different courses. One, which is the literature course, which is the language A, and then you've got the language acquisition course. So if you think about in terms of language and literature and language acquisition, I'm getting some questions about phases. And if they did the mastery, or sorry, if they didn't do the mastery course, and if they are in phase 4, for example, would they have to drop down to phase 2? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, your phase of your child's phase is not the class they're in, it's their ability. So you can mix phases within a class. It's probably not desirable to do that too much. But if there are a bunch of students, a group of students who are phase 3 and 4 who do not want to be Chinese mastery course, we can have a class of phase 3 or phase 4 students together who also do a foreign language, and they will be doing the obviously language acquisition route. So really, we don't want to be thinking that we're taking something away here. We're actually trying to address the challenges of our location and of the current climate by offering this real mastery course. And I think the real choice is if your child thinks that they really like to master Chinese, like the name, then do the mastery course. If they don't, then don't do the mastery course. Do two languages instead, like we have been doing up until now. I don't think we'll be in a place, I'm sure we won't be in a place to offer language and literature students the chance to do language and literature in Chinese and a French or Spanish. Because if you want to do language and literature, you're going to have to really do that mastery course if you want to get to the level that you should be. And finally, from one of the questions, it's about this question about if you're doing phase 3 or 4 or first language language and literature and EAP at the moment, as some of our students are, English for academic purposes, instead of that foreign language, that French and Spanish language, then we have an issue really, because we have nowhere that you can do your EAP in at the moment, but we'll just have to do that on a case-by-case basis and do something bespoke there. But it may be that we'll look at if the EAP provision is needed, what we can do for that, or what other classes can be missed. But at the moment, we don't have anywhere to put that. So, but do bear that in mind. We are reacting really to putting to your choices, and let's see what we can do with it. Is there any more questions that we have here? There's a question here which says, Julia, maybe you can answer this one. May I know, how will the Chinese mastery course be structured? Will there be additional professional teachers teaching this new course?
Can we? Our current teachers are very professional. Yeah, very well trained and very hardworking. Yeah.
It does say additional, so it does assume that already we have professional teachers.
Yeah.
Yes, it will be our teachers teaching this course. We may need to employ slightly more provision, depending on the numbers that we actually get choosing the mastery course. And the final, a couple of more questions here. So for the dual language option, there will still be phase 2 to 4 plus foreign language. Yes, definitely phase 2. Because phase 2 will definitely do this, and we will try, because it's language acquisition, we can put phases together within that language acquisition course. So if phase 4 students, we would advise you did the mastery course, of course we would, but we could look at how we could provide for you within language acquisition, but it wouldn't be a phase 4 class bespoke. There wouldn't be enough students to actually do that. And again, we're going to have to look at the number of students we've got doing that. Is that okay, Julia, that answer? Yeah. Okay, and finally, a question here. If we choose Chinese mastery course, does it mean that we have to take a more difficult exam?
Same exam, better result.
And can we choose to do an easier exam?
Which
like
easy?
that.
What do you mean?
No, you can't. With the exams,
Same exam.
the exams.
Same
So,
exam,
yeah,
and a
Julia's
better
right.
result.
It'll be the same exam, better result, because obviously more times. Questions coming in thick and fast. Anyone want to answer them?
It says, is no change for year 8 and above. How can those students equip themselves for the exam? If there's no change, then they will just take the exam in the same way that we always have done at West Island, with lots of success. So for that student, they'll stay in the same format as we've already done, no change, and we'll expect the results to reflect that as well, which up until now have been excellent. Remember what we said that this mastery course is for. This mastery course is really for those students who want to stay in Hong Kong or China, go into the workplace needing that extra level of academic language and professional language. This is what this course is designed for. So no different to the students who want to stay as they are, do the GCSE as everybody else. This is just preparing students for that next stage post school.
Can my child choose mastery this year and move back to dual next year? you want me to answer that, or Helen?
Yeah, I think we want to keep options open, but equally, we need to be very careful that students aren't just kind of moving at ease between one program and another, because what happens is you're missing the learning in the other areas. So whatever you're switching over to, you can end up being behind in, which is why we're really encouraging you to think really carefully now about whether this is the right kind of pathway for you. Um, and most students, it will work, and the choice you make will work. There might be the odd case. There's always one or two cases where we need to look at individually, and we'll try and support those students. But it's not going to be possible for us to have, lots of students constantly changing between the pathways. So I think very carefully about the route that you want to go for. I know the Modern Foreign Languages team will be really supportive to students that maybe do want to move across later on. We often get students sort of coming in that have no exposure to a European language further up the school, and they still can be very successful. But we would really encourage you, like Helena just said, to really think about, if I'm doing this, is it really the right thing for me and my child? Is it really what is going to help them thrive? And go from there with the decision.
I just wanted to add, Helen, that tomorrow we will send this video recording to all parents. And also, along with that, we will send a whole list of the frequently asked questions with answers. So they might be good to have another look at tomorrow with your child. Also, your child should know what phase they are in. So you should be able to have a conversation with your child and ask them what they are currently doing. They should know that.
Yeah, can I just come in on that last question as well? Through experience, when students change courses, it never really turns out really well. I would encourage you not to choose this as, oh, let's try it out and see, because it's not more difficult, it's just more
It's the
time.
breadth. And
More breadth and more
it's the
immersion.
breadth.
So there
So
shouldn't be a reason that, oh, I tried it and it's too difficult, because it's the same course as you were doing. So it should really be easier in that respect. And it's very difficult when students move between courses on them and obviously the teachers, because they've missed a certain amount of the assessment or whatever. So try and make a commitment to the course, but it's not a hard no from me, really, as Helen said. For the mastery course, are there different levels, Julia?
Similar, of course, we differentiate students. Students are different, the literacy are different. Some people stronger in reading, writing, some are strong in speaking, listening. So we are using the standardized MYP rubric and to assess our students.
Yeah, so you'll either be there's going to be a language literature course of mastery and a language acquisition course for
Yeah, we are
mastery.
using MYP standardized marking criteria to assess our students.
Yeah, and within that, I presume within that language acquisition, there could also be phases within that, but you'd assume most would be phase 4.
4 and 3 together. We
4 and
can't
3
offer,
together, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so remember, the phase is your child's ability, not the class that they're actually in. And some of these, we're going to have to, last 2 questions. Helen, do you want to have a go on one of those?
Mastery, it says, will mastery start in year 7 or year 8? So for current year 7 students, it will start in year 8 next year.
Yeah.
We will add all of this into the frequently asked questions. And I think we can top the frequently asked questions with a brief explanation of what the different pathways are and what the phases are, because I can see that that's causing some questions, and that's fine. That's fine. We'll write that down so you can acknowledge what your phase your child is in and what that actually means.
Yeah,
And
and I
whether
think
sorry. No, I was just going to say, Helen, whether they're language acquisition or first language or second language or language and literature, because it's so complex, the different pathways for language, because obviously as a school, we are an international school. We have so many students of so many different levels. And so we try as much as possible to teach them at a level that is appropriate for them and a pathway that's appropriate for them. So I'll just try and clarify that for you. It leads to the same leads to the same exam outcome. So whether you're doing foreign language, language acquisition, first language, it's still going to be the same grade, if that makes sense. So at GCSE, if your first language, you're not necessarily going to get a higher grade than somebody who's foreign language. So we just need to bear that in mind, that it's about the right level for your child.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll leave it there because it's 6:45. So we will put together the FAQs and the video and try and get those out by the end of the day tomorrow. And then obviously if you've got any individual questions about your child's learning specifically, you can contact their teacher if you want to know something specific about their ability level, etc. And then we will send out the sign up in end of next week probably, and start getting an idea of numbers and of interest in the different pathways. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Helena and Mike. And a big thank you to VJ, who we never see, but he puts the whole webinar together and runs all the technology. So huge thank you to him. And thanks to everybody for coming along. And
I'll give us a survey at the end that the parents can do as well for the feedback on this webinar.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll
Good
send that out
night.
tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.